So let's talk about interview skill or personal interview. This will be a perspective from an interviewee's end as to what all should an interviewee be preparing for when they get into a personal interview situation. I hope you're not getting too disturbed by the birds in my foreground. They are around me and they are kind of indulging in chats and all. Okay. So, what is that is evaluated in an interview? It is an essential component of the assessment process for competency and for getting into a job. It is essentially an interface or an interaction or a conversation in a controlled environment between the interviewer and the interviewee. So it'll never be a monologue. It'll never be a scenario wherein the interviewee is going to speak for a long, long time. The interviewee should not have the mindset that I'm getting into an inquisition, that I'm getting into a questioning room, an interrogation room. That's not going to be the purpose of an interview. After all, the recruiter, the organization has spent so much of money to come to know that person personally. Otherwise, without the interview, they would have looked at the resume, the mark sheet, even administered the test and seen the responses of the students or the applicants to it. But they wanted to see for themselves in person what is the feeling, what is the attitude, what is the verbal and the non-verbal communication of this person. Will he or she be a good fit in my organization? That is why it is an interaction. That is why it is an exchange of information and ideas. And of course, we are seeing whether they are pertinent for a job or not. It has to be treated as a meeting. It has a purpose wherein they both determine the competency and the fitment, whether the employee would also like to get into that organization, whether he or she is a good technical, um, personal, and a cultural fit into the organization. And there's a controlled setting, it is timed, the questions are also directed, and there are certain rules of the interview which need to be followed. The purpose of the interview is that the interviewer will be eliciting opinions, information from the interviewee. So there's not only information, technical information, which is true for all, which is standardized for all, which will also be sought, but also the personal opinion, which is very subjective, which is very peculiar and specific to each and every applicant. That will also be sought in an interview. So a student or an applicant should not only prepare himself or herself as to how to answer the technical questions, but also to voice their opinion. They should be encouraged to think deeply about matters. And we'll look at what are the matters that are being evaluated or examined in an interview. It is, of course, they're seeking comments and reactions about an event or something that came up in the press or the media, to know how they respond. If suddenly I put something which is very stimulating, which is very which elicits very stark or exaggerated responses, how does this person respond? And it is, of course, assessing the competency for a particular position or a post. Very quickly, let's examine the types of interviews that an interviewee may have to undergo, or which are usually administered. There's a direct or a structured interview, wherein there is a series of questions which are, asked of the interviewee, and there's a lot of information and data which is collected. And this is usually pertinent or relevant to the job profile, which will be lower or the middle level management jobs. And because they want to know what is the technical competency. Do you know this? Do you know that? How many years you've worked? What all software were you using? What was the size of the team you were managing? Have you traveled as part of the sales, as the sales team manager? Where all did you travel? What was your territory? And which your company essentially operated within which aspect of this industry? So this is lots of information, wherein this person will not be required to make decisions for the others, but would rather be seen as a performer. Can he or she be an optimum performer? In that case, direct or structured interview happens. Next is indirect or unstructured interview, wherein the idea is to know more about the person. So even if we have officers, SSB or Service Selection Board for officers, and therein our new pass outs, our engineers or our masters in a particular stream, who've done their masters in a particular stream, apply for these posts. They are going to be the first level or the first rung of officers who are going to be recruited into the defense services, whether it is army, air force, or navy. But again, the decisions that this single person is going to make is going to affect the team's performance, security, not only of the team, not only of his unit, not only of his commandant, but also of the nation at large. So that is why for these profiles, there is indirect or unstructured interview, whereas there is deep intervention and deep questioning into the personality and the psyche, or the intrinsic personality or the psyche of the person. A lot of information is gathered, or data is gathered. Not all is relevant to decision making, but still it is gathered in the process of uncovering the layers, peeling off one layer after the another. So by the time the interviewer reaches the innermost relevant layers, the superfluous outer layers need to be peeled off. That is why an indirect or an unstructured interview takes longer to happen. So one should not assume that only for posts which are of higher level management will we have unstructured interview. Certain cases, or certain for example, if one is appearing in the interview of being the executive assistant to the CEO, then again the profile is such that there will be an in-depth unstructured interview which is indirect, one question leading to the other. Oh, tell me about this. Oh, when that happened, because they want to know about the intrinsic personality. So one cannot really classify that these are the kind of jobs that have direct interview, these are the kind of jobs that have indirect interview or unstructured. That's not the case, but usually unstructured or indirect interviews happen for positions which are of a higher level management, or like I said, team leaders or CXOs and so on. Let's look at the type of interviews that the students might have to face. Patterned or semi structured interview, wherein you are guided to speak freely for a controlled time. Okay, sell this pen to me. All right, so tell me about a situation in your life wherein you had a difference of opinion with your friends, and how did you, what happened, and did you patch up with them, or what was the outcome of that situation? So that is a controlled time. That is a very specific question, but they are asked to tell freely, share the narrative of the episode. This is for personality or behavioral assessment, in which the interviewee will reveal himself or herself due to adroit handling, due to very specific nodding, gestural, non-gestural cues, and encouragement through words also by the interviewer to go on in that, in this direction, go on, share more information. So this is what all the interviewee should be mindful of, that when he or she is getting these positive responses, that means the interviewer wants to know more about this aspect. So he or she needs to be more at guard, more particular about what he's sharing, how he's sharing, and how she is presenting herself, right? And then we have in-depth interview, wherein there's technical, non-technical, UPSC and all that, because they want to know the fitment for specialized jobs and requirements. And this is all a JD oriented, job description oriented interview. Stress interview usually happens for very stressful jobs. For example, someone involved as being the head for a media organization, the print, the press, and the online or the news channel media, because a lot of sensitive information is being shared. There's a lot of high stakes for the job. Someone who's going to work as an air traffic controller or an aeroplane pilot, commercial pilot, is also undergoing a stress interview. Here I'm reminded of an opportunity, of an event. We had Mr. Baltej Nanda, who approached us in 2012 or 13. And at that time, Jet Airways, which is no longer functional now, had opened for the first time after 8 or 12 years vacancies for commercial pilots for its fleet of aircrafts. And Baltej had completed his degree license of commercial pilot from the US, and then he had been a flight instructor in a flight school in Madhya Pradesh. He had more than 100 plus hours of air flight and of flying in the air. And then he had been teaching for many, instructor for many 6 years or so now, and he was doing exceptionally well. So he was very keen to get into the job, and the interviews were happening in Mumbai. So we, in preparation of the interview, we asked Baltej to dress up also similar to the uniform for the commercial pilots. And since he is a Sikh person, follows the Sikh faith, so we told him to wear a black turban and white shirt, full sleeves shirt, and the kada that he would be wearing should be inside the sleeves. For example, I'm also wearing a kada, right? So see, it is visible here. So what I've done is I've tucked it inside so that it's not visible in this under the sleeve. It should be under the sleeve. Then black trousers, formal tailored trousers, black laced up shoes, black socks, and he should carry his interview folder with him. The pen should not be in his pocket because it might leak. So white shirt will have, and the since the applicants were in thousands, because they had opened up the opportunity after so many years, so it will be a long wait, and that should not make the ink also become more melted or fluid, and it should not come out in his pocket. So we asked him to put it in his folder. So these small details we paid attention to. So then he said, ma'am, so there were many applicants. So he was given 2 to 3 days. His batch was for 3 or 4 days, and he'd been called to Mumbai. So the first day he did not get an opportunity to be interviewed. So we asked him at the end of the day, how was it? How's everything happening? And what was the response of the people exiting the interview room? What did he gather and fathom? So the first thing he said, ma'am, the interviews are happening in CCD, and the interviewers are in torn jeans and t-shirt, and you've made me wear these white shirts and trousers, black trousers. Do you think it's a good idea for me to get inside? Because everybody is so casually dressed, even the interviewers, most of the interviewees also, people who are coming to the CCD are also, and I'll stand out like a sore thumb. Do you think that's a good idea? So I told him that's their ploy. They're going to check your stress, ability to manage stress, handle stress, by putting your guards down, by pulling your guards down, by presenting themselves in such a casual demeanor. I said, Baltej, do please think deeply over it. Are they going to hire someone who has a very casual attitude to manage or to be at the helm of affairs when it comes to the security of the aircraft, which is in crores of rupees, and also so many hundreds of people who are on board the aircraft, and that value is priceless, of so many lives? Do you think they are going to entrust that responsibility to anyone and everyone? They are doing that deliberately to examine you, penetrate deeper into your psyche, and to see how you respond. I said, if you dress up casually, your responses can also become casual, because your mind will be at rest and it will not be thinking logically. And that may not be true, because while you are at work, you'll be very focused and at the job. But in the interview room, they can pull a fast one with you if you get in with a little bit of casual approach. And it can become a casual approach if your attire is not such. And he finally got convinced, and he went ahead, and he was one of the few people who were selected. So he worked with Jet Airways till the time the airline shut down. So this is how stress interviews conducted for high pressure jobs. It is not always that the setting will be stressful and people would be, it is almost like an inferno. The interview room is like an inferno, and people are being thrown in, and no, it can be camouflaged into something very cool, casual, and very inviting. But the stress can actually happen or can be hurled at them through the questions, the situations that are created, the simulated within the interview room, wherein they'll have to come up with very intelligent and composed responses. Then there is the exit interview, wherein an employee who leaves is asked how was their experience of working, and to gather data for improvement for themselves, for the organization and its people. Then let's look at the type of further types of interviews, as far as not the nature but the number of interviewers is concerned. Panel interview usually happens for UPSC, or for a role wherein it is going to be a multi-departmental, or the person is going to be in a team leader capacity, wherein he or she has to manage not only the people working in his or her team, but also is an important link in the chain as far as the production team, or the service team, or the sales team, or department of that organization is concerned, and will have to carry out many interdepartmental activities and responsibilities, and will have a lot of people attached to him or her, in a superior role, and in a role of a subordinate. So then a panel interview happens, wherein not much of data is collected, because many people are asking, most of the time it is to view their communication skills and the ability to manage more people at the same time. Group interviews, when a cluster of candidates are interviewed together, it is akin to a GD. And herein they want to see the group dynamics, how new applicants are able to manage themselves if they are being perpetually ignored in a group discussion, or in such an interview setting by a superior. How is their temperament, how is their ego, how are their responses, do they get flustered, or do they feel overwhelmed by the whole thing and just give up in between. So this is especially for those positions wherein team roles are very important, and each and every team players very reflectively selected to fulfill a very specific purpose, but he or she has to be a contributor at all times. So this is what is the purpose of a group interview. One-on-one interview is the usual setting for an interview, wherein one recruiter will go on and interview the interviewee. Telephonic interview, wherein data entry or not much public interaction is involved, or one is just voice over the microphone, someone who's helping with settling issues with someone's laptops, or some kind of a consultancy work which can easily be done over the phone without showing the face. Then these kind of interviews are conducted for these persons. There's another interview that I like to talk about, and that is screening interview. Usually, when there is an important role, or a very specific role, or a requirement has come up for a very specific role within an organization, then there are string of interviews that happen with the same applicant within the same organization. So the first interview, the screening interview, is conducted by the HR manager or the hiring manager. Usually the applicants do not take this very seriously, that he or she is not the one to whom I'm going to report or working with, so she is just the HR, would not know the technical aspects of my work, so I'd rather not take this interview seriously. No, but there's a purpose or a reason behind this. The HR manager or the hiring manager is actually examining you, or the applicant, as from the perspective of a good cultural fit for the organization. So at that time, one's views, opinions, the ability to be congenial, to be able to state their opinion without being inflexible, that is being determined. So that is also an important interview. Now let's look at the desirable attributes that a candidate should have while preparing, or while being interviewed. Very quickly, I'll have a sip of water. The professional aspects that are being evaluated are that he or she should be able to fit into the job description that is posted in the let's say the advertisement, or that is shared in the pre-placement seminar by the organization. What is the depth and range of knowledge? So for this, we can even have guest estimate rounds, we can even have technical interview rounds, we can even have technical quiz rounds, or technical paper kind of a round. But after that also, there are certain aspects which are evaluated in an interview. The depth and range of knowledge, how easily can they communicate the technical aspects of their role, of their work area. Because if they can communicate it easily, simply, that means they have a very deep knowledge of it, their understanding of the nuances of the job. If someone is getting into, let's say, soil conservation, then they need to know different types of soils, and what is the usual soil that is found at in this part of the country. And so many, this different seasons have a different nature. Suddenly there have been new rivulets that have come up in this area, so they carry clay soils. It does not mean that immediately after the monsoon seasons for a month or so, if we collect the soil sample, doesn't mean that because of increased clay element of clay soil, does not mean that the soil is mostly clay. Those kind of aspects that one should be able to talk about. So in-depth knowledge, comprehension, hands-on experience. Have they had some kind of an internship or kind of association with a company or a person or an organization who's worked in this? Usually people whose parents are in defense forces get into defense forces, so that is also a hands-on experience. Do they have a desire for learning beyond the scope? Do they want to learn more? Is this, have they said that, once I did that, but what was intriguing was what happens, though my internship lasted only for 6 months, and I came to know that after 1.5 months of monsoon, the sample that we collected had to be clay. So my supervisor told me that after 2 months again sample had to be collected, and again after 2 months sample had to be collected. So I could collect sample only 3 times, of which I knew the first sample was had to be polluted or unusable because of the recent monsoons. But I was wondering what would happen further 2 months down the line, and further 2 more months. Now those kind of responses, that kind of projection shows, conveys to them, yes, they have a desire for learning, and when they are working with us, they'll have these challenging aspects and positions and projects, and that would make them more interested in the work that they're doing, and they will bring more of their competencies, focus and attention to the table, to the team, and that would enhance their performance as a team player and also part of the team. So these are the attributes even in professional sector of the interview that they're looking at. And their ability to innovate and willingness to experiment, this also comes across, ladies and gentlemen. If someone has written, innovativeness and adventurous streak, if someone has written as their interest sorry, I'll very quickly have a sip of water. If someone in the interest has written hitchhiking or traveling, and then in the topmost corner of their resume they've written in residential area, in residential address, their hostel address, so that immediately conveys to them that to the interviewer, that they're not living at their hometown. So and then they've professed that they have an interest in traveling. So to check innovativeness, uh, adventurous spirit, the ability or the inclination to try new things, will be checked by asking them about the new city that they're residing in. So, how much do you know about the new city where your studies are happening or your university is located? What do you think is the most attractive feature of the city? And what did you not like about it? Tell me about a few tourist places. If I were to come to your city today, where all would you take me around and why? Now, that is how, even a professional skill or competency, will to experiment, innovativeness is also evaluated or examined through this kind of an instance. They can even be asked about, technical knowledge coupled with the will to experiment and innovativeness, about the projects that they've done, about the internships that they've taken up, about the trainings that have been a part of their curriculum, right? Next comes the behavioral attributes. How are they interacting with their family and friends? For example, I was referring to a Harvard Business School study wherein Dr. Rohit Deshpande, who was leading this research, said that we went to then Taj. We went to the Taj hotels hiring team, HR team, and we asked them, how do you hire these people? So they said that we go and hire these people from tier 2 and tier 3 cities. We go to cities like Dehradun, Haldwani, Chandigarh and Banaras, and we go and we do not look at the high performers in the classroom, we look at the average performers, and we ask the teachers and principals for recommendations. How are they with their peers? Are they respectful towards their teachers and about the elders? And then we ask these students who are who are referred by their teachers about their relationships with their grandparents, with their parents, elder members in the family and the society. So these are the questions, direct and indirect questions that will come across according to the requirement of the job, whether they need to be adaptive sociably, or are they. So this person whose resume I showed you earlier, he was asked straight on, you'll be going to Jamnagar, how will you manage there? So that's when he shared that, if you'll see, my interest is coin collection, and living here from Delhi. I've shifted here to Chandigarh, and there's quite a difference. And there I lived in a joint family setup, and that's so many cousins and women folk, so much of love and nurturing coming my way. But here I've settled down, and that is something that encourages me, and this is the moment that I've been preparing for. So I would like to go there and live. Then there was my cousin. He was appearing for the interview of Sonalika Tractors. He was asked, "Would you are you open to relocation?" He said yes, and he had not done his research well. So he thought that he was taking the interview in Dehradun, and he thought that he would at most be posted for Sonalika Tractors here in near Ropar in Punjab. But then he forgot that down south in Karnataka also they have their setup manufacturing unit, and his first posting was there. So those are the things that students need to be prepared for. He said he professed social adaptability. He went there, but he could not work for more than 1.5 years. So he got into another stream. He got into the banking sector, started working with the local bank and all. He learned Kannada eventually, coming from a Punjabi family. But what I'm trying to say is his social adaptability increased after getting into a job which he found difficult initially. But then this is what the students need to be mindful of, how they can profess or declare or demonstrate their cooperation and team spirit. These are the roles, or these are the activities that they should pick out and put in the customized resume. The sense of responsibility. How responsible are they? The girl who forgot her pictures is not going to be viewed as very highly responsible towards her work and the task cut out for her. Integrity, someone who's coming across as too good to be true, trying to please, will not be considered as very having a high quotient of integrity. Their initiative, self confidence, decision making capabilities through very direct and indirect questions. Why did you choose to study this course? Why did you take up physics, chemistry, and maths in class 11th? Oh, that's because my father wanted me to do that. My elder brother is also an engineer. My father is an engineer. My father's elder brother is an engineer. They're both the sons are engineer. So that doesn't mean that your decision making capabilities are good enough. You just go follow the trend. You just follow what your family is doing, and then we see that you're not doing very well. So how will you be able to make independent, well informed decisions for yourself? The ability to influence, especially for marketing and sales positions. So sell me this pen, takes out, so hackneyed, so traditional, so classic. Yet every time this question comes up, takes out the interviewer, takes out the pen from his or her pocket, throws it at the interviewee, and says, "Sell me this pen." Now that how the same question that has happened over decades, but how different can they be? For example, when we were preparing our engineers for at Thapa University and Punjab Engineering College for for recruitment, campus placement drives, we asked them, why are manhole covers round? Why can they not be square? Then they did not have an answer. They said they can be square, they can be any shape. It is just that earlier they started being round and all. No, they don't realize that something which is round does not have corners and edges. And when water flows, there's a delge of rains, and there's water that is blocking the roads and streets. It can flow smoothly, easily over a rounder shaped object, as opposed to something that has corners, because then in the corners there will be lodged small pebbles or some debris that will obstruct the flow of water, and it can remain standing for longer. It can also, when there's an obstruction and there's a huge flow of water, then the lid can also open up with the pressure, with the friction, and then someone can end up, though the water will be drained, but then someone can end up getting inside that drain. That is why rounder holes, manholes are better, manhole covers are better. These are the questions which are asked to know about technical competencies, in-depth knowledge. For example, I just asked, why do you think an apple fell on Newton when he discovered gravity? Why not a mango? Nobody could answer or think deeply that in Cambridge University, in the UK, tropical fruits like mangoes cannot grow naturally. especially in those times. That could not have happened. So he had to be sitting under the tree of a very common fruit that happened to be an apple. This is how, questions come, and puzzles are also thrown at them. So the child or the applicant needs to be very well prepared. The types of questions that are shared or that are given out to the interviewee are open ended, which can, okay, tell me about yourself. This is a very open ended question. Tell me, how do you tell me the process of making tea. That is an open question, but it is not a closed question, but it has a very restricted response to it. So an open ended question can lead to them opening up, a can of worms, a laundry list. This is not working, that is not working, my father did this, mother did this, they all are focused on the elder child, I don't like it here. Those kind of responses should not happen in an open ended question scenario or interview scenario. And these interviewers are dexterous at extracting this kind of information. Leading questions. Oh, this happened. So you must have been very happy and proud of yourself of having accomplished such a high score in class 12. Oh, yes, I was. And so, what is the decision that you came to? Why did you decide? Now, that's a leading question. So it is a two-step probing. That did they feel this, and then what is the the following decision or the perspective that they, or the perception that they develop because of this event in their life. Then there are comprehensive questions, wherein there is a list of two, three questions that are given in one go. All are connected, which are there to confuse, to know how they retain. Is there clarity about the concept? Because if one knows the first part, the second, and the third, they will immediately be able to answer the question. Then there are follow-up questions to the responses, which are very direct in manner. So you say that you did not score very well and you were saved by your JE performance in your class 12th and all that. So those are the questions that have a very direct response. How do your students prepare for it? I have shared enough during the initial part of our session today as to how students can be questioning and inquisitive in nature. They can go about asking relevant questions from the training and placement officer to the alumna who are working with the organization, friends and family members who are working in the company or in the broader industry. Research the online presence, the social media presence, LinkedIn presence. Reach out to the company, ask a lot about them, website. Go to the website, read their vision, mission statements, their objectives, their hiring history. What are the kind of people who work there? What are the keywords that they are using to describe themselves? What is the latest news that is happening around this company and organization? And collect that information, develop a sense of feel of culture, the expectations. They should thoroughly know their job description. If this is what is required to be able to work on Excel for long hours, to be able to conduct data analysis, so that means I need to have an understanding of Microsoft Excel sheets. I need to have other more softwares which can be implanted to huge amounts of data, so that I can have or undertake the process of huge large amount of data analysis. So this is what the child should be able to prepare for. What are the characteristics of the job? If it is data analysis, that means I need to be able to write reports, also present them in a graphical and non-graphical manner, to have a supporting, a complementary role given both to graphic and the non-graphic elements of my report. So my communication skills should be good. I should be able to write in good English, or I should be able to know how to use pie charts, histograms, so on and so forth. Do I know that? Does an engineer know that? So that is something that they should work on. Assess the quality of responses. So they need to know information about and awareness about the company and the organization, something that happened in recent past, policy changes and reforms and norms. They should know about those. For example, Maruti Suzuki had a huge strike in the 1990s, in its setup, in its manufacturing unit in Faridabad. And after that, they decided to change the laws, the labor laws, The government of India also changed the labor laws for especially became more strict towards workers union and all, because that incident brought to light how workers union can disrupt the functioning and a commercial enterprises operations. So that kind of information, that peripheral information, fringe information should also be known to the student. Not only the core information, but something concerning that industry should also be known. Suppose they are appearing for Yamaha's interview, so they should know about this. Suppose they are appearing to be the HR in an organization like Thomson Press, which hires many thousands of employees, just like Maruti Suzuki, and also has a lot of unions, workers' unions in place. So they need to be aware of these labor laws and policies. They should, of course, suit the CV. They should, whatever they've written in the CV, they should know about it. Their training synopsis, their work with DRDO, their interests, that also should be known. They should have latest development and updates with them, and they should, in general, be inquisitive and want to know. It shouldn't be too much of getting into Manorama yearbook kind of or newspaper chewing kind of a habit, but being aware, not being totally unaware. Something nowadays it's so easy, something which is trending on LinkedIn, something which is trending on the platform X, which was the earlier Twitter, or something which is flashing continuously on the internet sites or the social media or the news media sites of so many news channels, that should at least be known to them. They should not feign disinterest and ignorance about it. Then they should also have paraphernalia. That was the core to the work. Paraphernalia information should also be available, and their responses to them should also be prepared. For example, I shared about how my name would be deciphered by them, how they would be asking me about my name, and according to the company or the organization that I would be appearing for, I'll prepare my answers. So students should be aware of their career options and plans. They should be able to give a forecast of 2 to 5 years from now as to how they see their career growing. If they have a, what is the plan that they have? Things may turn out to be completely different from the plans, but their view or idea of their plan will ensure or instill a trust, a faith in the interviewer, that yes, this person is thinking long term, knows about his or her ideas, knows about his, is watching out for himself, and is careful about his own how his life is going to unfold. There should be discussion or comfort in talking about home and family. There shouldn't be again a can of worms, a kind of a situation when talking about home and family. And it should be in a very balanced emotional manner. General knowledge and awareness should be high. Hobbies and interests should have in-depth research done about them, and they should be talked off with a lot of animation, lots of detail, elaborate details. Dress deportment should be impeccable, collared, solid colored shirt, as lighter in color as possible. In even the girls can wear a blouse, like I am wearing a short blouse today, full sleeved, minimal jewelry, little bit of makeup for women. Men, of course, no makeup. Their stubble shouldn't be so showing. Should not have a hair wash on the day of the interview, because then there are many flyaways. Hair gets lighter, and there's a lot of flyaways because of the wind or the breeze from the ceiling fan, so that the whole look comes out to be much neater. They should not have had a haircut just a day before, at least a week before the interview, so that the hair strands can settle well and one is not looking like very different, and one is not very uncomfortable with it. The nails should be trimmed. They should be painted in a neutral color for women. They should wear formal trousers, and accessories, leather accessories should match in color. Brown belt, brown shoes, and if the trousers are lighter in color like gray, it is a good idea to wear tan shoes. If the trousers are in darker color, let's say black or navy blue, so the shoes should be black, then the belt should be black. The pen, the watch, and the metal accessories should match. Men should not wear any accessories except for tie or belt and a watch. They can wear a tie without a blazer. That is the jacket, or what they call it, a suit, a coat. They can wear a tie without that, but then they should be able to, manage their tie. Should not be flinging hair here and there. They should be comfortable in formal shoes. It's not that it shouldn't be that for the first time in their lives they're wearing the shoes that day. So this is a very classic example from, we had this very 12th fail recent movie in which someone who's from the interiors of Bihar and gets into the UPSC examination after multiple attempts, gets into the interview room. His first response after getting out of the interview room was loosening his tie, getting rid of the jacket. Now that's a very uncomfortable or a very inappropriate response. One, and then he was summoned again into the interview room, and that time he had not, he was not wearing his jacket. He had not, tightened up his tie because he had already believed that he's not going to get the job. But still, the panel was decided in his favor. They were willing to give him a shot, so he got away with it. But till the time one leaves the interview room, one should not come back or project or demonstrate a casual state of mind or a physical manner or demeanor of carrying oneself. The demeanor should be pleasant, confident, eye, making eye contact, not steely gaze and not looking at the ceilings, avoiding eye contact, shifty, not like that. There should be a lot of energy effusing from the person when they are in the interview. Please remind your students to present themselves as they are, not as they would want them to be. Because then they will fall into a trap. They will be questioning, and the lie would be caught. So, the way to go about appearing and excelling at interviews is to listen attentively, not to get lost, not to start thinking of responses while the question is being put forth. Do not interrupt, do not perceive more, but rather do not interrupt or do not complete sentences for the interviewer. Rather sense, interpret, perceive. Why is he or she asking me about korfball? What could they be thinking? Of course, they could be asking me about how I'm a team player, but that is also um, quite reflective, quite demonstrated very well from my being part of the organizing committee from so many events. Why korfball? Okay, perhaps making a fool of myself, physical game strength. So okay, so my answer should be on those lines. Now that kind of deep interpretation or understanding can happen if the resume is already ready with the student. Then remembering the preparation that they did and then responding. And sometimes the student can take a break also in between the interview before a question is put forth to them. So before a question is put forth, they can ask for a glass of water. Even if there's no glass of water on the table, it will be arranged for the interviewee, by the interviewer and the team, and that will give a respite or a brief relief between, a breather between the very strenuous interview and having water properly, not gulping it down with a lot of sound, but 2 3 sips gently, placing the glass back and sitting properly on the seat. That has, kind of given a breather between the very stressful environment. One can also, very gently bend like this and take out the handkerchief, clean white folded ironed handkerchief from their pocket before the next question is put forth, and gently dab their face to remove sweat, or if they want to blow their nose in the handkerchief, they can do that, neatly fold it and keep it back in the pocket, and then sit back. Again, a break has happened in the interview. And once they can even, ask for a break in the interview after the question has been posed to them. For example, a question has come their way, which could be about an incident which is either behavioral in nature, technical in nature, and this applicant does not have an immediate response. He or she can say, can I take a brief moment to recollect my thoughts? And then he or she should remove eye contact from the gaze level, turn their eye gaze downwards, ponder for 4 5 seconds, then come up with the response. Yes, I think that was the time when this happened, or I've read this about this concept in this, and this is what it says. If they do not have a response, they should very honestly say, I'm sorry, I was recollecting my thoughts, but nothing comes to my mind now. I remember having studied this concept, but cannot recall it now. So that is how, a break can also be had in an interview. during, even after the question has been posed. But then one needs to be very confident and mean it. It shouldn't come across as a ploy. One should not have monosyllables and one word responses. So there should be a continuous interaction. And drawing of attention can happen. So when I was part of that team, all my team members, though they came from different engineering fields or streams and different years, I got along so well with them. Now what is happening? I'm stressing that different aspects of life and different age groups do not boggle me, do not make me feel intimidated. So this is how questions and answers shared can be preempted, and they can be already framed. Responses should be to the point, not long winding stories, neither to be too short. There shouldn't be exaggeration, there should not be lies. One should not sound overconfident but should be confident. One should not beat about the bush, do not interpret. If there's, so there's another opportunity in which a question can be, a break can be asked or sought in an interview. That is when someone has been asked a question which they do not understand. Then they can say that, I'm sorry, I cannot understand or comprehend the question completely. Can you rephrase it for me? That means use new words. If one has not heard the question properly, perhaps there was a cough, or for a brief moment the thought went away somewhere, they can say, I'm sorry, I did not hear that properly, can you please repeat it for me? Same word said again, right? And respond comprehensively with the attitude of sharing information about myself. And don't keep interrupting or asking, I'm sorry, I did not understand, I did not understand that. That is, that of course does not tell well about the applicant. While giving out the responses, one should keep the JD in mind, the job description, that they are asking from the perspective of the job description whether I'm a good fitment or not. One should not deviate from what is written in the CV, should not say falsehood, and sense the essence. Why are they asking me? Not what is it that I want to tell them about me. Why are they asking me? What is it that they want to know from me in this interview that I should be telling them? Do not presume. An applicant should not presume that they're going to be hired, but rather they should show interest in getting hired, not be confident, oh, I'm going to get hired, what do you. And you can seek clarification after the interviews got over. If they give you the opportunity, is there something that you'd like to ask me? The applicant has told this, then the applicant can say that, I'm thankful for the opportunity today, is there any question that I've not answered satisfactory or left unanswered? Would you like to pose it to me again? I'll be more than glad and grateful for that opportunity. They'll say, no, we've got our answer. So can I please know the next steps in the process of me knowing whether I'm selected, shortlisted for the next round or not? Then they'll tell you about that. And if it is an open interview, it is not a campus placement scenario, it's an open regular interview, then the applicant can present his or her visiting card to the interview and tell them that, this is, thank you so much for the opportunity. If I may present my visiting card to you, and present it very congenially and in a very cultured manner, and can sense whether they are open and approachable in that manner. May I request for your visiting card as well? This is for professionals. So this is how networking happens. So end of the interview is very important. Thank them for the opportunity. Get up properly from the seat. Push it back into its place. Turn around and walk out without making eye contact after one has walked out, and walk out of the entire corridor or the building in the same manner without making any eye contact with the jittery and nervous other applicants or friends who are hanging around. Not share anything, because then the commotion that is caused because of the interaction can reach inside, and it can um, you know have a bad impression on the interviewer, which was still now a good impression. Or they can even have their plainclothesmen watching out for how students interact. Go, let the applicants go out, let the students be out, let them make a note of how the interview went, how were they satisfied, which answer was good, which answer was not good. Is there bright idea that came to them in while appearing in the interview, that this is how they can answer such and such question? Quickly make their notes from the interview. Provide information that is required. For example, certain certificates or photographs that were missed in the interview room, they should be provided immediately at the email address or in the hard copy format as and when desired by the interviewing panel or the interviewer. That should be done. And then the phone should be switched on, and then interaction should happen with peers and family. And then some time should be spent alone, because recollection will not only happen in the form of immediate notes that are jotted on, but also through deep contemplation and pondering when one is sitting alone for a long time. So that should be advised to students. And of course, they should be mindful of their first impression. So non-verbal interaction, which is 93% of our communication, will always have more say in our hiring than whatever preparation we've done of our knowledge and communication skills. 55% is through impression, through their appearance. Then the 38% comes through the speaking manner, open body language. How are they sitting? Are they sitting like this? Are they sitting like this? Are they slouched? Are they making eye contact? How do they stand? Are they twitching their body parts? Are they uncomfortable with the buttoned up shirt? Is there too much of play happening with the hair? Those are the things. And through words and language. For example, I think it's a better idea to take up drilling for oil in such and such area. Now, in my opinion, which is very unqualified and very novice, I feel that it will be a better proposition to go ahead and dig in an area which has such and such kind of evidence to lead to a presence of oil in the deeper layers of the earth. Now, that's the way to speak. It's the same thing, but the way one chooses their word to qualify and disqualify their statements, that also conveys a lot of information about one's intrinsic personality, temperament, attitude, and behavior. And of course, dressing appropriately is very important. So suddenly one day students cannot just dress up appropriately and know what is to be done. That dressing up should be a part of their decorum for many days. For example, one day in a week, every throughout the year should be dressing up formally as though they are going to appear for the interview. So what happens is, so many new things are happening to them on one same day, unnerves them, makes them nervous. But if they're used to wearing formal dresses, formal, clothing, attire, and turning up and going through the grind of the day for so many years, so appearing for an interview in a formal attire is not going to unnerve them. It's not going to add an extra element of pressure, because they're going to be used to it. Because so much of performance is based on the temperament or the state of mind. So that is something that you can prepare your students for. Sometimes if they are not used to wearing formal dresses, then in the NHR they realize, oh, I don't have a proper fitting shirt, or my shirt is become smaller in size for me because I've outgrown it. The sleeves are not coming to the length of my wrist, or they're shorter for me. What do I do? Do I borrow someone else's shirt? What do I do? There's so much of that essential, important time which can be spent in preparing for unforeseen aspects, unforeseen elements of the interview, are spent in making do and running helter skelter, scurrying along for the foreseen and already prepared aspects of the interview. So these things, as teachers, as guides, you can work upon with them in preparation for the interview as well. Of course, the entry is very important. Knocking the door, even if it is ajar, it shows courtesy. Seeking permission to walk in, then seeking permission to take seat, then to gently drag the seat out, sit down, keep the folder on your lap, not keep the hands on the table, not to spread out too much, but to have feet firmly planted on the ground and hands resting on the knees. Women can cross their legs at ankles, but not on knees. Taking the seat, the lowest part of the back should touch the lowest part of the backrest and not the entire back, and not even the middle back, because then the tendency to slouch will become quite pronounced. Body language should be pleasant, open palm, slight smile, no furrows on the forehead, softer gaze, listening attentively. Sitting posture should be energetic, erect, and engaging. Hand movements should be less, but still open palm movements to establish connection. Eye movement should not be sudden and jarring, not too much of bobbing. and nodding of head, no nervousness, adjusting the tie, wringing hands, perspiring visibly. To counter that, underneath the shirt they can wear a dress shirt or a t-shirt which is white in color, has a round collar, and sleeves are till just below the shoulder, and that supports the fitting of the shirt also. And it also supports with perspiration, because then it absorbs. Pure cotton t-shirt by jockey, it absorbs most of the perspiration, helps in controlling body odor. Sweat spots do not show up in shirts, so that also helps in not exhibiting nervousness and not visibly perspiring. And parting and withdrawal is very important, to take leave gently with a lot of courtesy, because that also conveys a lot of um information and impression about the person. And this is just a review. I don't think I need to go again over it again and again. Meanwhile, this is a code on your screens. If you'd like to review my session today, please scan this code from the device that you have, and you'll be guided to a Google review section. And you can leave me a star rating there, whatever you find apt for today's session. Let me share my inputs, or how I would advise my students to answer the generally asked questions. So the first question that can be asked of them is, or usually is asked, where do you see yourself in 5 years from now or 10 years from now? Now that is just to gauge their long-term perspective about themselves, and also to be very pragmatic in sharing that they see a career in this field for some time, and why not work with the same organization. So the answer should be about like in the next 3 to 4 years I should have worked on such and such projects, and that should have helped me to gain promotion into the role of such and such designation. And then feel that I should be working on projects, or working on operations pertaining to these aspects of the work of your organization. Now, of your organization, now in an inadvertent way, in an indirect manner, I have answered the question that I see my future of career in your organization. As opposed to that, if a student says, oh, I want to be working with your organization only, and I want to work at a higher rank doing this, that does not come across as credible. It comes across as unbelievable and as a show put up to convince the interviewer. So that is not very convincing, rather it backfires. Next is the question that the students are asked about the pay that they are expecting. Never ever should the students or the applicant give out a certain fixed amount. They should say that till now I have been surviving on the money given to me by my parents. So at the start of my career, I'm looking to be financially independent with my present needs and requirements, not aspiring for a very high or a very higher degree of a lifestyle. But with my present lifestyle, whatever I have as a student, maybe a little bit more of financial freedom, and I'm assured of it, because your company's reputation and my research has assured me that the salaries lie within this 20 35K to 50K, or 50,000 to 80,000 per month. And I will be more than happy to receive that money, because right now I'm surviving on the pocket money given to me by my parents. So at this juncture, what is more a focus is the work or the role that I get than the money that I would get. Of course, that is also an essential part. Then they can be asked about the questions that can be tricky and can be asked about is, are you ready to relocate? Then those questions should be answered once they know where all the branches are located, and if they're okay with it, say yes. If they are not, then they can say that of course I would choose to remain, since I come from the southern part of the country, I would choose to remain in the southern part of the country. But if the role and the work is exciting and it takes me to the different parts of the country, I will not say a no to it. So that's a way to answer, wherein one has answered yes and no at the same time. Then the next question which can come is to women or to girl applicants, who can be asked, so what are your plans for marriage now? What is when will matrimony be figured in your scheme of life, or events of life? And that is something that they cannot avoid, right? And they can ask, so they can say, so the girl can say, yes, it is a very personal question and I may not choose to answer it here, but since you brought it up, because I understand the sensibility behind it, that you would lose a very efficient worker, very efficient employee from your ranks, let me assure you, for the next 3 or 4 years, I do not see that happen. So that is a very good way to answer, rather than being flummoxed by it, or being, being feeling awkward, or feeling kind of feeling awkward with it, that what if they ask me, and going about sniggering about it. That is something that can be avoided and answered in a very pragmatic manner. Is there any other question, do you think, that is posed to students in the interview room, that has not been answered by me, or how I can help you with framing such answers? Anything else that you'd like to ask me before I close the session today, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, please.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. I would just like to know. I mean, if a student is asked basically for giving his personal introduction, okay, what can be the brief or the best if a student is asked basically to give his own introduction within a very short span of
Yes.
time, uh,
Yes.
how it could be within that time?
Yes. So in that case, whatever is written on the CV, or whatever is written on the resume should not be repeated. The student can begin by saying that, as you know, my name is ABC, as is there on my resume. And I'd like to introduce myself as an innovator, as a dreamer, or as an adventurer, because if you go through my projects, my internship roles, you will find that I have taken up opportunities to be in internships, or taken up opportunities to be part of a project team wherein we thought out of the box. We came up with really obscure concepts, and tried to formulate them in a concrete and in a very materialistic, gross manner. Now, what is happening here is, what I'm trying to say here is, the student should present an introduction from the perspective of their qualities, not by telling about where they live, where they come from, who are the members in their family, and other things. Because these things, what your father's name is, what your mother's name is, or what is, or how many siblings one has, or where one lives, has no role, or has no significance or influence upon them being a suitable or the preferred employer candidate. Rather, they should take this up as an opportunity to qualify themselves for the job. Have I answered your question, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Any other question?
Ma'am, no, not question, but yes, I just wanted to say, indeed, it was a very good session. And
Thank you.
the points which you have highlighted, it was beneficial for all of us. We can take it and we can use it with our students to get the maximum benefit.
Yes,
But
ma'am. Thank you.
one thing I just wanted to ask: can we get something like hard copy, matlab like in PDF
Yes, there
format,
are
some
notes.
kind of notes?
Yes. So there are notes for both the sessions that I took today, wherein I have shared in detail about the aspects that I covered today. So resume
Yes.
notes are there.
Yes.
Handout on interview skills is also there, and I've also shared the resume sample, the one that I referred to during the previous session for resume writing.